flame on.
Today we're checking out the new Razer Blade 16, Razer's newest and thinnest gaming laptop to date. And if you've watched my videos for a while, you may have seen that I've done a couple of different videos in the past trying out different Razer Blade laptops. I've always really enjoyed my experience working with these computers, and today I'm excited to push this one even further than we have in the past, which is to be expected because in this laptop we've got an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5080 laptop GPU, which of course I'm going to put through its paces in a bunch of different creative applications. So huge thanks to Razer and NVIDIA Studio for sponsoring this video and sending the Razer Blade 16 for me to test out for this project. Now you've already seen what it is we're making, the Human Torch. Now, let's, I wanted to say let's flame on, but I can't do it. Let's start. So I'm thinking we blend a little bit of motion capture for the body and some hand-keyed good old animation for the face. I'm gonna use this EmberGen bundle. It's kind of this like arcane style shading of these characters. I'm really a fan of these. These are really, really good looking rigs. And I've been wanting to play more with them. So I think we'll use Mars. It's gonna be good. Now, I'm thinking we start off with a little bit of visual development. Let's go ahead and just jump into EmberGen where we can play with some effects. Not that we need to start with effects, but I feel like I wanna know what the look is gonna be. EmberGen, you've seen me play with it before. You can take an object and get a live volumetric simulation, which I think is gonna be really cool for this. So if we take this character inside of Maya and we just have this simple motion, I'm curious to see how motion is going to work inside of our simulation. How detailed are we gonna get? Is he gonna trail fire or is it gonna be a little bit choppy? I don't know. So I'm thinking we pull out the skin and the hair and just like the base clothes. Inside of here, I could go ahead and just import a file and I'll go ahead and grab that file. His scale's a little bit whack, so let's just bring him down to like 1/10 of the size. I'm gonna use this geometry as the emitter shape. And then I need to make my simulation bigger. I'm gonna lower the resolution. Oh, there we go. Okay, after some time spent, I think I'm kind of liking this. The flames are cascading a bit above him, but they're also not like too wild. He's got some nice detail around his body, and the flames are kind of adhering to his form. I think it looks pretty good. I can't have him move all that fast. Just the way the Alembic stuff works, he doesn't trail flames like through the air all that well. I don't know how to adjust like the sub-samples or sub-steps or I don't know, the simulation steps of the fire. I'm not sure how to mess with that. So that's some good initial testing. Now we just need to feed in some good geometry. So I say we jump to animation. I wanna do regular keyframe animation of the face, but I don't wanna be here all day. So I think we'll use motion capture for the body. So let's knock that out and let's capture some body stuff. Flame on. Okay, that should do it. All right, so now I've got my flame on moments and I've got some reference. Okay, so these are my poses, apparently. These are the poses that I came up with in the moment. Let's not judge me too hard here. I'm not loving this like, yeah, brother, like, the big like wide leg stance. I'm not a fan of that one. I thought it felt cool in the moment, like, whoa. At a certain point, I kind of realized that I was going really big and I thought I should give myself an option to do something different. And so I tried to go more contained and I like this one a lot better. So let's go here. We've got a little bit walking in. I went a little bit too much with the weight shift. The first time I ever shot reference, I tried to overact the reference for the sake of the animation to be like, I'll add arcs and anticipations, and it made it look it was ridiculous. It looked terrible. Because you pull that stuff from real life, you don't overact it because then it's just bad. It's just bad acting at that point. And then I thought it'd be cool if he could fly. So maybe he's like looking at his hands, admiring, and then that's him flying away. So I'm borrowing an Xsense Link suit, which I really like the capture data from. And so that's what I'm using here. But I'm also borrowing the Manus Meta Gloves to go with it. This is the second time that I've tried to record data with the, I'm like, oh, let me go ahead and shoot stuff right now. Like, I'm going. And I put the gloves on and I hit the button and they're dead. I charged them up and then I left them for a while, and I'm shocked that like the batteries are dead. So I'll show you my hand workflow. So I'm actually kind of excited about it because we have a full pose library for these characters, so we should actually be able to fly through the hand stuff. Now, before we jump fully into animation, let's take a second to talk about this hardware. As I mentioned, the Razer Blade 16 is the newest and thinnest gaming laptop that Razer has made yet. But if in addition to creative work, you also hope to game on this laptop, which I do, the 240 Hz 2560 by 1600 resolution and a slightly taller aspect ratio on this display will come in very handy. Also, the fact that it's OLED means the colors are gonna be much more vibrant, contrast between lights and darks. The screen is fantastic. I have not had an OLED laptop screen yet, ever, and so this is nice. I do really like the form factor, how thin, how light. The actual ports and I/O I'm a fan of. The touchpad doesn't suck. Like, it's actually pretty good. I have not had any issues with it. I typically always use a mouse, but this trackpad, completely usable, which for me is a big compliment because I'm typically not a big fan of most Windows PCs trackpads. This one's really good. All this to say, yes, of course, this is a sponsored video, but my opinions are my own, and I like this laptop. I am very impressed by my first impressions, the time I've spent with it. I've enjoyed the experience. It's doing what I need it to do. I like it. And as far as the power within the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 5080 laptop GPU, this kind of graphics performance, yes, of course, gives you gaming performance, but in our case, it's gonna give you faster rendering times, better simulation times in tools like EmberGen that are entirely GPU bound, as well as accelerated performance in apps, whether it's video editing, if you're in Blender, Unreal Engine. There are some parts of Maya that are GPU specific, animation not so much. Having not only an NVIDIA GPU, but having these studio drivers make the experience much more stable and generally faster. And something I didn't know, I did know that these were the new NVIDIA Blackwell Max-Q chips. I did not know that their AI optimization had anything to do with battery efficiency. Apparently it makes for not just good performance on the computer, but also better battery life, which I was not aware of. So we'll take that for sure. And of course, if you are curious about learning more about what applications benefit from NVIDIA Studio drivers and kind of how that works, I'm gonna have a link in the description below, alongside a link to the laptop, which are exclusively available at Razer stores and on Razer.com. So if you wanna check it out, link below. So here's my motion capture data inside of Maya, just on its own, working just fine. And I can do this straight onto the controls of the character without too much problem. I should be able to bake it down without an issue. But this character rig is not designed for mocap, and I'm not sure what's going on, but it is not letting me like save the character definition. Every time I try to lock it in place and say, hey, we're ready to go, the character just like breaks. So here when I tell it to follow the character, it's not supposed to look exactly like this, you know? Like it's close. Now, just for kicks, I brought this character into Unreal and actually set it up as if this were gonna be a character I use for a game or something. And I found that the motion capture data on this character actually works just fine when run through Unreal. So if I wanted to, I could do all my cleanup over there. The kind of stuff that I've been teaching in my Unreal classes over the summer. So I'm actually gonna do something kind of weird. I'm gonna bring that character mesh data from Unreal, where it's working just fine, and just display that in Maya as sort of this transparent ghost of the character, so that I can bake the broken motion capture data onto my character, and I can fix it knowing where the rig is like supposed to be. This is a really weird problem that I'm having, and I don't really want to take the time to fix it properly, so this is how I'm working around it, and I'm just gonna brute force it. So I've made an animation layer called adjustments, and I'm basically just putting any corrections that I'm doing right here onto this adjustments layer. I'm not being very scientific about this, and all of these changes are just changing the overall pose. The general motion of the arm is still in there on the other layer, so I don't know. This is not the cleanest way to work, but I want to get to other stuff, so I'm just going pretty quick. And this is my hand override layer. So I've got a layer just for the hands so that I can just bypass. I'm not keeping all the extra data and doing like an adjustment and trying to tweak it. I'm just overriding the hands and saying, no, go here, do what I want. I also don't have any like shoulder data from the mocap for whatever reason, just the way I applied this, I don't have shoulders. So I'm gonna do a pass of just the shoulders, because the shoulders are super important to get all this weight and to get all this feeling. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop these down here when he pushes his arm down. I wanna make sure that he doesn't feel stiff in the torso, and the shoulders are gonna go a long way in making sure that these feel good. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this face layer, and I'm just gonna grab all the face controls, and I'm just gonna use my studio library here to sort of apply these poses. And I'm gonna start off with the brows, and you can see that I can both double click to apply, but I can also drag and blend in little bits of these poses. And this will work for whatever I have selected. So if I just select like this section of the face, or if I deselect the eyes, for example, I can now take one of these facial poses, maybe this very evil looking smile thing, and I can start to blend in just a little bit of that smile. You can block in the acting of the head without having to sit there tweaking a million controls. You can move through the shot pretty quickly, just getting the general idea, and I can always refine this later. Now I'm gonna do the same thing for the hands. I'm basically just gonna go through the entire shot and say, all right, let's start him off at a more relaxed pose, and anytime I want him to open or close his hand, I'm either gonna just apply an open or closed hand, or I'll start to blend a little bit more or less of these different poses to kind of give me my in-betweens, to give me these breakdowns, and to create the anticipations, which I have a whole video on Studio Library, how to use this in different softwares, so check that out if you have not seen this before. I'm also gonna do a quick pass here of just the eyes, and I'm just gonna have him do eye darts, generally looking where I think he should look. And I wanna keep his eye line generally looking towards where I think the camera will be. I probably should make a camera, but I don't have a camera yet, so I'll just do it this way. Now finally, lip sync. I love facial animation. It's my favorite part of animation. And so I'm just gonna do this by hand. I'm not gonna use any library stuff. I don't even know if he has library stuff for facial shapes. I'm gonna do kind of the major shapes first. When he says flame on, M is a great place to start because you cannot make the M sound with your mouth open. So I know that when he says flame, I have to close that mouth. When he says flame, I can have a big old A shape for the A, and then on, I can do more of a circle. So I know that I wanna start with those things, and then there's certain rules with the tongue. Like the tongue is gonna come up on, same as flame, right? So there's certain rules of how the mouth has to move, and I always start my facial animation with those sort of really specific points that there's no compromise on. That gives me a really good block out of the general like movement that I need for the 4 components of language, which is jaw up and down, mouth corners in and out, the lip shape, and the tongue. Those to me are the 4 components of language and how I do my animation. I have a whole video tutorial on how I tackle facial animation, which we'll talk about more in other videos. Let me know if you have questions. And it's really important that you're actually moving your camera around when you're doing this process so you can see what this looks like from different angles. This is my process for facial animation. Quick little overview. Let me know what questions you have in the comments. Maybe we'll do another video on this at some point soon. Or a class. I could do a class on facial animation. Let me know what you think. Now, rather than going back to EmberGen and doing the fire, let's go ahead and just get this into Blender and let's start assembling the actual final scene for this character. So I'm gonna export this character as an Alembic for EmberGen, but a USD for Blender, just because I like USD better. And I have another video on this like export process if you wanna bring your stuff over to Blender or send it to Unreal or whatever. So I'll link to that video down below. So all I really have to do is assign materials to each part of the character, and if there's a file associated with it, like the skin has different textures, the hair has different textures, I can just kind of link those into the color channel. I'm actually gonna render the fire in EmberGen, which I've never shown in a video before, so I figured I might just do like a compositing pass and just do them separately. His material has this emissive channel that I can turn it on and he'll start to glow orange and he'll cast light. And I'm gonna keyframe the intensity of the emission. So I'll find the frame where I'm happy with that. I'll go to his material and I'll set a key on the strength of the emission. So when he goes to flame on, I'll just key everything off first. And then I'll go maybe like 3 frames later. And so that will be my transition point to turn on the fire. And there we go. I've just got a regular kind of soft light up above him. He's got all of his textures in here. His animation works. And let me go ahead and give the floor something a little bit darker and more interesting as well, just to keep it really like, I don't know, keep it kind of cool. So now I'll take one of these edges, I'll turn on soft selection with O, rotate this on the x-axis, make that big, and then I'll drag it up. There you go. And now I have this like photo backdrop thing that I can use. So that'll give me my environment for this shot. Now it's time to jump back into EmberGen. I've got my camera exported as well, so that I just have the camera angle that I want. I don't have to try and match the exact look since I'm gonna be doing compositing. So I'm gonna make sure I turn off anything that I don't want included in this render. I'll hit play and I'll just kinda hang around for this to kick in. There we go. Now we have just the fire on its own, and I'll render this out to bring into After Effects. So here we are in After Effects. I decided to start with this vertical version, and we've got our character, he's doing his glow. We have our fire, add that on. I can add the glow effects to get a little bit more for our money here. And I use this mask to just say, hey, down here at the bottom of the shot, I want to display a reflection of the fire. So I just have the fire layer flipped, blurred, opacity lower, and it's just showing up there at his feet. That way that reflective ground is coming into play. And it should all be working, although I am noticing a problem. Do you see the problem? The problem is he's bursting into flames and his like body is emitting some light on the floor, but there's no general lighting happening as a result of all the fire. The scene would get really bright, or at least the ground would show a lot more light cast on it, so I think we should go back and fix that. Skipping ahead, I've done that now. Now you can see that the floor gets brighter, much better than before. I found another problem. The new problem I found is that as soon as he goes on fire, we can't see any of his facial animation anymore, which on its own might not be a big deal, but I'd kind of like to preserve his head. Once he turns into fire, he's just kind of there. It's just like a person on fire. There's nowhere to connect to the character. So I want to bring his face back. So I'm just going to jump back to Maya, delete the head, re-export the Alembic file, and use that to generate new fire, only up to his neck. So now his head won't be on fire. I'm going to re-render this from our camera. So now we have a new fire asset that just goes up until the neck. However, back in Blender, that means I have to do two things. He turns orange, so I've got to make him not turn orange because I want his head to just stay his head. And that's great. That's pretty easy to do. We just take off the keyframes on the head material and we no longer have that emit orange. So now he stays normal. The other thing is, just like the floor, all that fire needs to cast light on his face, right? If I take a light here, if I have fire underneath me, I'm gonna need this to happen. I need that lighting to motivate a change on the face, or it's not gonna look very realistic. So we need to do the same thing in Blender. I'm gonna create an area light and just kind of put it at chest level, glow the underside of his head. So now we can bring that new render into After Effects, which is kind of working, except that we can't see the head. The fire overwhelms the face, and that's a huge problem. So I'm just gonna draw a little circle mask around his head. Obviously though, it's got this like halo of black around it. So I'm gonna duplicate the layer and use the layer as a luma mask for itself, meaning that anywhere we have black values don't show up, anywhere we have really bright white values show that. So then that will allow me to cut out the black stuff and just use his head on top. And I can try different blending modes to sort of integrate it better, but I don't really want it integrated. I want it to stand on top of everything else. So I just make sure that mask is feathered so we can kind of blend in and out. But now you can see that even though the fire is going up and over his face, we still have the orange lighting because the Blender render has the lighting and it shows through the fire and that luma mask we have going on. So as long as the mask all follows his head, which it does, it shouldn't affect anything else on his body. And I'm thinking, we don't necessarily have to make everything in 3D. When he flies up into the air, I could do a whole nother like flame simulation to get that, or I could just add like a flamethrower effect or something. Lastly, I'll just do some really quick and easy sound design and maybe a tiny bit of color correction just to make some stuff pop, a little bit more contrast. And we have the final piece.
Flame on.
And that just about does it. The longest part of the process is obviously just having to re-render a couple of times, and at the end of the day, I'm pretty happy with what I did, and I'm really happy with how this laptop performed while doing all this work. Once again, a huge thank you to Razer and NVIDIA Studio for sponsoring this video, for providing the Razer Blade 16, which I am really enjoying. And although it is not an impressive game to play on such powerful hardware, I really want to get into Project Zomboid. I've been watching videos for like a year and a half. I've never played because I don't have any friends who play the game. So if anyone watching my videos wants to play Project Zomboid with me, we should play. Anyways, a link to the Razer Blade 16 as well as info on NVIDIA Studio drivers in the description down below. Remember, you can grab this laptop at Razer.com or in the Razer stores. Those are the two places you can pick this up. With that, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something new. If you have any questions, hit the comments below. As always, I'm Sir Wade, and I'll see you in the next video.